Well, good afternoon. It is a tremendous privilege to welcome President Biden and Vice President Harris to the Department of Defense. Their visit to the Pentagon shows the importance that they place on our national security and, importantly, the deep value that they place in the men and women of our department. You know, I've had the privilege of working closely with President Biden to tackle tough issues under intense and often high-pressure situations. And I know firsthand his commitment to defending our nation and his steadfast support of the men and women that he now leads as our Commander-in-Chief. He knows well the necessity of making tough choices with regard to our scarce resources and the importance of revitalizing our alliances and our partnerships. And he knows we in this department will always be ready to fight and win should he call upon us. But he also believes that his first call should be to our diplomats, with us in full support. And when the president talks about leading from a position of strength, this is what he means. The strength that comes from teamwork and cooperation, and from defense and diplomacy, working together with agency partners and allies big and small. And that's how he is marshaling our government's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. And it's how he started to take on some of the most challenging threats we face around the world. Mr. President, thank you for visiting us today and for the trust and confidence that you've placed in us. We will do all we can to make sure that you and Vice President Harris are always leading from that position of strength. And Madam Vice President, I know that you share the President's vision and that you believe strongly in the work that we do to defend our nation. In your lifetime of support to the American people and your outstanding and outspoken support of service members, especially our veterans, gives me great confidence that you will fight to make sure that our military remains the strongest and the most capable fighting force on the planet. And so we're grateful for your support, and I look forward to working with you to tackle our country's most pressing security challenges in the year ahead. Mr. President and Madam Vice President, thanks again for honoring us with your visit. And so now, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce the Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris.
These guys are tall. Thank you, Secretary Austin, and for your warm welcome today, and for your leadership, and to the personnel here at the Pentagon, both civilian and uniformed. Thank you for your dedication and for your discipline. And thank you for keeping our nation safe. Over the years, I have visited bases in California, and I've also traveled to meet with service members stationed in Iraq and Afghanistan. The service members I've met, our troops around the world, face daunting challenges, but they do not flinch. They do not let their energy flag. They defend our country, they deter our enemies, and they sometimes do it all thousands of miles away from their homes and their families. Service and sacrifice is in your DNA. It defines who you are. It defines what you do. It defines how we lead worldwide. And today, as we face global threats to our climate and to our health, to our physical security and cybersecurity, your work is of profound importance and consequence. And that's why the President and I are here today, to tell you that we stand with you and we stand for you. You are the best and the bravest fighting force in the world. You know that success comes not just from training and equipment, though that is certainly crucial, but also from clarity in vision and in mission, in strategy and in tactics. It comes not only from force, though when we must fight, we will fight to win, but also from diplomacy, development, and our democratic principles. That is what we pledge to you. We will always honor your service and sacrifice. We will always support you because your success ensures our nation's security, because your success ensures our nation's success. You have wise and steadfast leadership in Secretary Austin and Chairman Milley, and you have a commander-in-chief. We have a commander-in-chief in our country who knows from personal experience the burden that you and your families carry. He has so much respect for each and every one of you, as do I. As you know, this is Black History Month, and while we celebrate that part of America's history every day, let us honor also today the Black soldiers who fought at the Battle of Bunker Hill, the Black infantrymen of the Civil War, the Black waves of World War II, the many courageous Americans who throughout our history have answered the call to duty. They didn't just join to make history, they joined to serve, and all of you joined to serve. So as we next hear from our president, let me just end where I began. A few months ago in Ohio, I met the mother of one of the service members I met in Kabul, a soldier by the name of Shayla. And her mother was so proud of her daughter. And she came up to me and she said, "You remember my daughter?" She showed me a picture of her. And she asked me would I call Shayla and leave her a message. And it was a simple message. I told her how thankful I was and her nation is for her service. And I'm thankful to all of you. And of course, so is our president, your president. So is our nation. So may God bless you, and may God bless America.
Well, thank you, Madam Vice President. Now, if I may, just a few more words before the president takes the podium. And these words are about family. As most of you know, I had the privilege of serving with his son, Bo, in Iraq, when Bo was a captain with the Delaware National Guard. And Bo was an absolutely outstanding officer and a good man. And you know, I knew that pretty much the moment that I met him, a good man. Now, Captain Biden's colleagues admired him, and they looked up to him, and he looked after them. And that dedication lives on in his parents. You know, even before her first day at the White House, our First Lady, Jill Biden, announced that she would relaunch Joining Forces. And as you know, that's a public-private initiative to support service members, veterans, and their families. And just last week, Dr. Biden and Dr. Fauci participated in a town hall with Blue Star families addressing their concerns about COVID vaccines. And so the Biden family knows what service to country feels like. They understand sacrifice, and they know how to look after those who look up to them for leadership. And as the commander-in-chief, I know that President Biden will always ask the tough questions about what we're doing to keep Americans safe. And equally important, what leaders are doing to take care of the men and women charged with this profound responsibility. We are very fortunate to have him here with us today, and we are enormously grateful for his leadership. And so, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great honor to introduce to you our Commander-in-Chief, President Joe Biden.
Well, Mr. Secretary, thank you. Good afternoon to everyone. I want to thank Secretary Austin for welcoming the Vice President and me to the Pentagon today. It's good to be back. Before I begin, I have some welcome news that the Saudi government has released a prominent human rights activist, Loujain Alaathi Lowell, from prison. She was a powerful advocate for women's rights, and releasing her was the right thing to do. It's been a busy day. Earlier, I announced steps we've taken to impose cost on those responsible for the military coup in Burma. And I've just concluded a briefing with the civilian and military leadership where I laid out my national security priorities, and I want to share the message directly with the Department of Defense staff all around the world. Because each of you, whether you're newly enlisted, a career officer, a non-commissioned officer, or a civilian policy expert, you're essential to how we project our strength around the world, defend America's interests, and advance American leadership in the world. So often, our armed forces and the Department of Defense staff are how the rest of the world encounters America. And you all know as well as anyone that our country is safer and stronger when we lead not just with the example of our power, but with the power of our example. As your Commander-in-Chief, I will never hesitate to use force to defend the vital interests of the American people and our allies around the world when necessary. The central, indispensable mission of the Department of Defense is to deter aggression from our enemies, and if required, to fight and win wars to keep America safe. But I believe force should be a tool of last resort, not first. I understand the full weight of what it means to ask young, proud Americans to stand in the breach, as was referenced by the Secretary my son both served in Iraq for a year. I'm the first president in 40 years, I'm told, who had a son or daughter who served in a war zone. So I know what it's like being Commander-in-Chief is an enormous responsibility and one that I will never take lightly or easily. I will work with Secretary Austin and leaders around the world to bring responsible end to wars that have dragged on for far too long, while continuing to ensure that terrorist threats cannot endanger the security of the American people. I also know that you are essential to the work of our diplomacy, not only as the ultimate guarantor of our security, but as diplomats yourselves. I got to know Secretary Austin when he was serving as commander of U.S. forces in Iraq. It wasn't just his excellent military leadership of the many times I met him there and his strategy. He was a consummate diplomat as well. He worked closely with our ambassador to build relationships with both civilian and military leaders of our coalition partners. Because we are better able to project our power when we're amplifying our strength through our alliances, it was so important. There is no aspect of our agenda of the 21st century leadership where the women and men of the Defense Department do not have a role, whether it's helping curb the pandemic here at home and around the world, or addressing the real threats of climate change that are already costing us billions in impacts on our bases and our national security, or being part of an ongoing fight for racial justice. You are essential to how we must rethink and reprioritize our security to meet the challenges of this century, not the last. We need to take on the dangers and opportunities of emerging technologies, enhance our capabilities in cyberspace, ensure that we are positioned to lead a new era of competition from the deep sea to outer space. And we need to meet the growing challenges posed by China to keep peace and defend our interests in the Indo-Pacific and globally. Today, I was briefed on a new DoD-wide China task force that Secretary Austin is standing up to look at our strategy and operational concepts, technology and force posture, and so much more. The task force will work quickly, drawing on civilian and military experts across the department to provide within the next few months recommendations to Senator Austin on key priorities and decision points so that we can chart a strong path forward on China-related matters. It will require a whole-of-government effort, bipartisan cooperation in Congress, and strong alliances and partnerships. That's how we'll meet the China challenge and ensure the American people win the competition of the future. You know, to the incredible individuals who serve in our armed forces, you are unquestionably part of the finest fighting force in the history of the world. You're warriors. The work you do each and every day is vital to ensuring the American people, your families, friends, and loved ones are able to live in peace and security and growing prosperity. And for those of you who raise your hands to sign up to wear the uniform of the United States, We owe you an incredible debt. I've said for many years, less than 1% of Americans do what you do. Put yourself on the line for the rest of the 99% of the Americans you represent. The 99% of us owe you. We owe it to you to keep the faith with our sacred obligation to properly prepare and equip you when we send you into harm's way, and to care for you and your families both while you're deployed and after you return home. You're incredible heroes and incredible patriots. I will never, ever dishonor you. I will never disrespect you. I will never politicize the work you do. That goes for our civilian professionals as well as the career military. As I've said, this is personal for me. The Biden family is a military family. We learned firsthand some of what your loved ones experienced when Bo was deployed to Iraq for a year with his unit in the Delaware National Guard. We dealt with the stress of his absence and the daily joys of life, and we worried constantly about his safe return. We felt overwhelming pride in his courage and his patriotism. You're all the best our country has to offer. You live by a creed of selfless sacrifice. And for many of you, the journey to service has not been easy. February is Black History Month, as the Vice President pointed out. Before we leave today, the Vice President Harris and I are going to visit the hall honoring the long history of Black Americans fighting for this country, even when their contributions were not always recognized or honored appropriately. But those contributions have nevertheless helped push our country toward greater equality. From the bravery of the free and enslaved descendants of Africans who fought with the colonial forces in our revolution, to the Black regiments that joined to fight for the Union and for their own freedom in the Civil War, to the Buffalo Soldiers, including Henry O. Flipper, the first African-American graduate of West Point, and Cathay Williams, the first African-American woman, Cathay, who enlisted in the United States Army. Imagine the incredible love it must have taken for the proud Tuskegee Airmen to fly more than 15,000 sorties in battle when their own freedom was not fully realized in their own country. Imagine the determination of Roscoe Robinson, who started at West Point 1 year before Harry Truman issued the order to officially desegregate the armed forces, and arose to become the first African-American four-star general. Imagine the bravery of the 22 African-Americans awarded the Medal of Honor for their service in the Vietnam War while struggling for civil rights at home was continuing. It's all part of a long history of barrier-breaking service. Right now, more than 40% of our active duty forces are people of color. And it's long past time that the full diversity and full strength of our forces reflected at every level in this department, including our Secretary of Defense. This organization thrives and succeeds because of our people. So the final point I'd like to make today is to give you my personal commitment that this administration, from myself and the Vice President Harris to Secretary Austin on down, is dedicated to ensuring that every single person is treated with dignity and respect. That's why we moved so quickly to overturn the discriminatory ban on transgender service, and why General Austin's first memo was a directive to take a sexual assault in the military seriously. Every single person, no matter their gender identity, sexual orientation, race, or religious background, deserves to feel safe in the ranks and to have their contributions valued. It's on all of us to stand up, to speak out when you see someone being abused. This is an organization that has defeated American enemies on land, sea, and air, and been defined by the way we treat others. So I know this is not beyond us. Not if each of us makes this a priority as well. So thank you for welcoming us, Secretary Austin. It's good to be back in the Pentagon. I wish I could meet more of you in person today, but I look forward to spending more time with you and all the places you serve around the world. I know this is the honor of my lifetime. The honor of my lifetime is to serve as your Commander-in-Chief. So thank you for what you do for this country. May God bless you and protect you, and may God protect our troops deployed around the world. Every single one of you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.